Thanks, Michael, for the intro. And I'll just walk through this kind of slide deck. It'll probably take 5 minutes, 8 minutes, and then I'll show you an actual demo of the software because I think that that's the kind of best way to see it. As a little bit of background, I grew up in Kentucky, dropped out of college, started an e-commerce company, and eventually started a web design and marketing agency, owned that for 12 years and sold it in 2018. We started this company last year. As Michael said, we raised a little bit of angel money and have had a lot of early success and then surprisingly good success through COVID. And so happy to be here. So I'll jump right in. The kind of core thing that we're solving is this idea of business intelligence and competitive intelligence. What's going on right now is that if you're a brand manager, if you're a public relations professional, if you're a marketing director, you have a lot of spreadsheets like what's on the left. And these spreadsheets are used to track the competitors. Who else in the space? You know, if I'm a manufacturer, if I'm a roofing manufacturer, who are my other roofing manufacturers, but also some distributors that we sell through. We might be selling through dealers. So it's kind of a lot of constituents that are either selling to our same customer base or are selling our products themselves. And so I use spreadsheets like this to keep track of what they're doing online. When are they mentioned in the news? What types of things are they putting on their website? What kind of promotions are they running? What emails are they sending? And so there's a lot of these spreadsheets. I may also sign up for Google Alerts like you see over here on the right. The advantage Google Alerts is that they're free. The disadvantage is that Google News Alerts haven't been updated by Google themselves in many years. They work, but if you're a competitor or if you are an industry leader in any way, so if you're a big brand, a lot of your Google Alerts look like this. And this looks like a good alert because if you see right here, it says forklift truck market 2020 by leading players, this trending forklifts and lift trucks market detailed analysis. If you're getting these emails as a professional, you click on these links and you think, oh, this is great. But the reality is that every single, and this is real Google Alerts, all of those, they're all real press releases that are all junk. So they all go to try to sell these industry reports that are $1,000 to $4,000 each. They're all basically sales pitches for reports. They look like real news, but they're actually junk. So we trained a model. We trained 3 models, but we used some machine learning to hand train models about what do those pieces of news look like, so that Signal Insights can filter them out. And what we deliver, and I'll show you more of this in a second, but what we deliver is really kind of in 2 parts. One is a web dashboard interface that you see there on the left. And that allows me to see who am I, who are my competitors. I can see news about them and see stories. I can also see website changes. So when do they make changes to the banners and their home pages? So they see new products or new promotions, track their press releases, tracking the social media posts. I'll show you all that in a second. So that's a web interface. But then what you see on the right is that it's sent also as an email. And most of how our product is consumed is as an email digest. So you really never have to log in. You can get this either daily or weekly. So this is kind of the problem. So a lot of companies recognize the need to keep track of the competitors in their industry. So how are they doing this right now? Some of them are using employees. So they may pay an analyst. There are 1 to 10 person business intelligence groups at a lot of major companies. And they're tasked with knowing about what's going on inside the company themselves and also knowing what's going on in the industry. I talked to a lot of these people. I had a big call with one yesterday, and these groups are keeping track of the competitors and keeping track of the industry. So that's what they're doing right now. The challenge from a company perspective is that those employees, they take time off, they get sick, they quit. There are kind of all those things. They cost money, of course. They cost a lot of money. Outside firms like PR agencies are doing some of these things. They're costly, inconsistent. You have less control. There's kind of software. Michael touched on this a little bit. There's software that does some of these things like Cision, Meltwater, and others, and we'll talk about in a second. What's the challenge there? So the challenge there is that some of them are very, very expensive. They're hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But also the biggest challenge is that they're really overwhelming. So these pieces of software are very complex. They sell themselves on complexity. They sell themselves as really an analytical platform. And what we're selling ourselves as is this beautiful piece of software. It's more like a high-end report or an executive report. And then Google News Alerts. Google News Alerts only covers the news. There's a lot of false positives. It can be time intensive to look through the alerts that you get every day. So this solution, be up to date over morning coffee. This is kind of the fundamental idea, is that I can know everything that happened in my industry by reading this email over my morning coffee, or right in the morning or in the evening, to know what was important that happened in the news and that I should know about. It's consistent. There's none of the news spam I talked about. It's cost competitive, and it's comprehensive. So we're not just covering the news, we're covering the website changes, the press releases, social media, and then soon we'll cover email, and I'll show you that. So this is kind of the business model. This is a fully web-based platform. It's 100% software, so it's not human-based, unlike some of the competitors. Highly scalable. Our pricing starts at $1,500 a month and then goes up based on the type of integration that they want, or the number of users or brands that they want to track. It's an annual agreement, and then it's all fully remote. It's all software. This is a case study. So this is like a real kind of concept for how you can use it. So Toyota Material Handling, largest material handling company in the world, largest forklift manufacturer in the world. They're based in Columbus, Indiana. And they had no formal, so they have a pretty good sized marketing team, pretty decent sized business intelligence team, but did not have kind of this formal competitive intelligence kind of platform. So we started with a small marketing team. There were about 5 people that we initially started with on this team. And we had one kind of champion inside the business who got the funding for this and kind of runs the program internally. Within a couple of weeks of launch, they recognized that one of their largest competitors, which is a family-owned business, launched a key product. And then another one launched e-commerce sales at the beginning of COVID. So how did we notice this? We noticed it because they announced it with a banner on their homepage. So they put a big hero graphic on the homepage saying, hi, you can now buy forklifts online. Click here to go to our store. Our crawler picked that up and told the client about it. They pretty quickly rolled it out to the full marketing team and then to the dealer network. So all the dealers in North America were sent an email about the product and saying, come sign up for this, the sales team. And then next week we have a rollout to the executive team. So that's kind of that's how we've seen this work, where it starts with a small team, usually a marketing or branding team, and then it grows inside the organization. This is our target. So we're targeting companies of $500 million or more in revenue. This is an important distinction. What we're providing here is like prompts, right? So despite the name and insights, the actual insight usually comes from a team. So a human is reading the reports, and they must then be able to act on it. And what we see with smaller businesses is that they're like, oh, that's interesting that my competitors are doing this, or they launched this new product, or they just hired this new CEO. But how do I act on that? What do I do? They don't have the resources to actually act on it. And that's this important distinction with this, with the size company. They must be able to do something with take an action. In our experience, we do best in industries with competitors that have sophisticated marketing programs. In other words, if it's an industry, it doesn't change a lot and there's not a lot going on, and they're not posting on social media, and they don't have robust websites, they probably don't need this, right? If your competitors don't do much, you probably don't need something like this. And these are the kind of roles that we're looking at, and I'll show you 2 examples. Branding people, strategic planning, marketing, digital, business intelligence, a vice president of sales, an insights person. These are the types of roles that we're looking at and selling into. These are 2 kind of personas that you can kind of see. So this is like one of our contacts at Toyota. So he's a manager of digital at Toyota. You can see he's been there for a little bit over 6 years. But what somebody like Nick is really interested in is looking really smart. So that's important. And not missing something. So he's viewed positively internally when he knows that a competitor launched something, or when they just hired somebody new, or when a competitor buys someone else, or when they buy out dealerships and things like that. On the right is another example. So she's actually in Canada. So she's a senior manager over Canadian marketing for a holding company that owns a bunch of outdoor brands. And so Why does she care about this? For a couple of reasons. One, same reasons as Nick. She's a marketing executive and needs to look smart and know what's going on in the industry. Another thing is that just like Nick, she has dealers. So Toyota has about 70 dealers, 70 dealer groups in North America. She has 500 in Canada. So she has a lot of dealers. And these dealers want to know best practices. They want to know what's going on in the industry. So that's another part of this, is that it's not just kind of the corporate side, it's also the dealers or distributors. Competition, Michael touched on this. You have software like Crayon and Compite and Koros. You have Meltwater and Cision and Critical Mention. You have a kind of lot of these kind of outsourced approaches. I'd say that oftentimes what we're competing against is somebody like Meltwater. Meltwater is in a lot of these companies doing media monitoring. We see them. The biggest competition actually is an analyst, that they have people on staff. They have people internally, and that's what we're kind of going up against. These self-serve tools like Google News, if in my experience, if you're a leader, like anybody that we're targeting, if you work for a big company, Google News alerts are too overwhelming. They don't work. They don't work because if you're a Toyota, you get false positives every day. Every day it's like, oh, Toyota was in the news and this other competitor was in the news, and pretty quickly they start to ignore them. They ignore those pretty quickly. Smaller businesses use some of those free tools like Owler and others. All right, let me actually show you. So this is
let me just interrupt a bit. So
Yep.
So some questions have been coming up.
I didn't see the questions.
Yeah, it's okay. Amber has actually been responding to them. Thank you very much, Amber. We'll get back to those afterwards, but keep on, submitting questions into the chat. And if Amber hasn't responded, we'll go to those first. But I'll let Taylor continue with the demo.
I don't know why the chat. Sorry, I didn't see the chat as they were coming in. This is an example of a digest that you'd receive. So you'd receive this as the client. They would receive this either daily or weekly. So if it's in the morning, this would be what happened yesterday. If it's during the week, it would be what happened over the prior 7 days. So this is an example. So in the last 7 days, if I'm GE Appliances, I was in 6 news stories. I was mentioned in 5 stories. Now, what this distinction is important. A story is when GE is the focus of the story. They were the entity that is, they're usually in the headline, usually mentioned several times in the article. We have a machine learning model that we've trained with thousands of pieces of news to be able to identify who's the focus of the story, who's just a kind of ancillary piece in this. And that's what you're seeing here. So this 6 stories versus 5 mentions. LG had 2 stories, Samsung with 2. And then as you scroll down, you can see what do those actually look like. So Whirlpool announces layoffs. This is a lot of what we're seeing right now. And then competitor email blasts. This is a new feature of the product. This is we're signing up for the competitors' email blasts. Newsletters, mailing lists, all those types of things. The tool is capturing those as they come in and then rendering them here for the client. So what does a screenshot of the actual emails look like? We're also capturing what time of day were the emails sent, what subject lines are they using. And so there's a little bit more analysis that we can do on that over time. This is kind of an early peak. So you can just see what emails are the competitors sending, when are they sending them. These are website changes. So this is the banners on the competitors' homepages. And this will be bigger when I show you the dashboard in a second. This is just the email. But this is designed to say, okay, my competitors are adding new banners to talk about new products that they're offering, new awards that they won. Basically, there was a lot of activity in this particular week. For social media, this is what are the competitors saying about themselves on Facebook. So in the last week, GE Appliances posted 4 times on Facebook. LG posted 10 times, Samsung twice. What we show here, though, is not all the posts. We're showing what's the most engaged with post for each brand. So as you can see here, there's 3. So this is the most engaged with GE Appliances post, the most engaged with LG, the most engaged with Samsung. If you'd like to click and look at all of them, you can. But this is, again, designed to be kind of a simple digest. And then Google search rank, where do I rank against the competitors in Google? And how is that trending? So is this trending up or down? This email is designed to be self-contained. So you can get the email, you look at it on your phone or look at it on your desktop. You can click on any of these things and you don't have to be logged in to use it. The dashboard is the same type of information, but just a little bit deeper. So it's designed to be used, you know, when you have a little bit more time and they can log in at any time. This dashboard's updated several times a day. Same information, it's just more interactive. So I can click on the stories and actually view and actually view them, interact with them. Click, opens the story in a new window and go and read it. What's also shown in the web version is over here on the right is industry news. This is, we're tracking what are the industry news sites saying about, about the industry. So we're asking the clients, we ask them, what industry news sites are you reading? What trade publications are you reading? And then the crawler goes and grabs the news from those industry news sites 4 times a day and pulls it in here. So they have one place where they can view everything going on in the industry and also what's going on with the competitors. But as I scroll down, you can see it's similar to the email, just much larger and more interactive in that way. So I can see here the website changes. These are the banners that the competitors have changed. And then I can click to see what those banners are actually linking off to, what they go to from the competitor sites. I could see, again, the social media here. I could see the actual Facebook posts. In this case, we can actually see the pictures and the movies. Branded content is when the press releases issued by the competitors. So for large companies, they have newsrooms that the PR team, the public relations team, is publishing news in. The crawler is pulling that news as soon as it's published in that newsroom. For smaller brands, they're publishing a lot of content on blogs, and so we could pull that in from blogs as well. I could also pull in things like white papers. So in professional services, for instance, there's a lot of content that they're generating. You know, if you compete with BCG or Boston Consulting Group and Bain and McKinsey or anybody in that kind of sphere, your competitors publish a lot of content about webinars and case studies and white papers and blog posts and reports. We can track all that and roll that up and pull that in here. And then the same kind of Google search rank that you see down here on the bottom. Yeah, so that's the dashboard. I'm happy to answer any questions that Amber didn't answer there.
Taylor, do you want to tell us, you mentioned some success stories with Toyota material handling and the things that you discovered. Are there any others that might be worth mentioning?
Well, Toyota's a big one. We have a client named Viga, so they're a plumbing equipment manufacturer. And what they're looking at is they use it more as a scorecard. So the scorecard is used by the marketing team to say, we're doing a great job. And look at us. So if we go up here to the top, this kind of leaderboard or this kind of scorecard is used oftentimes by these teams. If they're number one and if they're actually doing a good job, they use it as, here's how we stack up against the competition. So that was sort of surprising because that's just a small part of what this does, but it's an easy way. When I was talking to Mark over there at the beginning, he's like, I just need a simple way to explain that I'm doing a great job to my boss. And I was like, okay, if you'll pay for it, then that sounds great. So that's, we see that a lot. And that's, as the company grows, I think part of what we're still figuring out is what are all the use cases for how brands will use it. Because like Viga, for instance, they don't have a ton of news. So if we were looking at their news, you would not see a ton of activity in here. And so you might think, oh, they're not finding as much value in the platform. But that's not, what they say. They're like, no, my contact at Toyota, when we were in the very early stages of this, he told me, he said, look, if you find 2 to 3 major events per year, this pays for itself. And so that's kind of the mindset that some of these clients have.